Hi, everyone. My name is Kim, and I'm the founder and creator of Expat Mama. Through these interviews that are both the audio podcast and the new YouTube channel, we educate people about what it's like to be an expat, nomad, digital nomad, and those types of personalities that have left their own country to live in other countries, slash, in this case, countries. Okay, a full-time traveler, perhaps. Our mission is to tell their stories. In this case, I wanted to get a perspective from someone who knows a lot about traveling as a single mom with a young child. Today, my guest is Anna Von Francis, who's originally from Newfoundland, Canada. And I hope I said this all right. She's currently located in the Oaxaca coast in Mexico, in Puerto Escondido. I'm so excited to interview her. Welcome, Anna. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Kim.
Yeah. Why don't we just start with your roots? Just tell us about where you're from and how you grew up.
Well, I'm originally from Canada, but I just have no feeling for that place at all. I mean, not to say that Canada is horrible. The Canada of my youth has not existed since the late 90s. And the place I grew up in was beautiful and wonderful and had a lot going for it in terms of like actual physical beauty. I mean, Canada is one of the most beautiful countries in the world, bar none. Of all the ones I visited, I can say I feel with some level of authority that it really is one of the prettiest. But also socioeconomically, politically, like we were quite a beauty for a long time. And that place that I remember, it's been gone for a long time. So now, like when people often ask me, where are you from? And I say, I live in Oaxaca. That's my response. And I feel like that's a nice way of saying, I don't want to talk about it. But then when they say, but you weren't born there, because obviously I'm so white and blonde. I say, no, I was born in Canada, but I left 12 years ago and I don't know anything about what's going on there or what they do. I always say, no conozco sus chisme, like I don't know their gossip.
Yeah,
that's a good way I really don't know anything about it. Anybody who sends me photos of where I've lived before, I don't recognize anything they send me. Any of the restaurants I remember are all gone. They're all condos now. Everything I remember from my childhood is gone. The Canada that I love has been long dead. And obviously in the last couple, the irony is I left Canada 12 years ago, kind of half joking because it was too fascist. And then now, like when all this COVID shit started, I was like, are you guys like reading my journals or something? Yeah, it was. I was like,
reading my journals.
Yeah, like, wow, you are fascist, it turns out. So, I mean, the joke about Canadians in the rest of the world is that we're liberal fascists. It's been that for a long time, and I'm not surprised at what's going on now. It's sad, but a lot of people I know who've defected down here from Canada have felt it a little cold kind of thing, but I've had 12 years to let it go. You know, I've had 12 years to go through the morning, to watch it crumble, to deal with the things that people in COVID are dealing with that are not interested in being participating. You know, like their parent, I mean, I have friends whose parents are coming down here for vacation, but really they're coming here to try and re-indoctrinate them into the cult of superiority, which is Canada, and get them back there with their kids and get them indoctrinated. And my friends are like, what am I going to do about this? I'm like, oh, I went through that for 12 years. I would come home from some far off place, living in a hammock, happier, have no possessions, happiest I'd ever been in my life. And it would be like everybody brought up the same thing. Like my mom had obviously talked to everyone to get them to try and get me to come back, you know, and get me to work. When was I going to get over it? And when was I going to get a real job? And when was I going to get a real life, i.e. when was I going to get into debt with a mortgage and whatever? When was I going to have a bad marriage and shitty kids? When was I going to live the dream working 80 hours a week and being, you know, overlooked as a woman and a mother? And, you know, when was I going to start doing that? And I was like, I have less and less want to do that every year. And when I was pregnant and in an abusive relationship, that's when the campaign was really, really big. Like, you have to come back to Canada. You can have a baby for free. All the bumper sticker bullshit came out really heavy. Turns out it's not free to have a baby in Canada. In fact, it's more expensive than Mexico, and you can quote me on that, by dollars. And they also take away your autonomy to your body. And to me, that was priceless. And so there was a lot of things that like over time, like I used to really cling to this free healthcare thing until I started getting the best craft beers of my life for $20 in Mexico, you know, and I started getting really great dental in Thailand and etc. Right. So I clung to that for a while too. That took a while to let go of, but I've let go of all of it. So now all the place is falling to shit and I'm just like,
I'm out of that. Yeah, you're like, I'm so glad to be out of that.
Yeah, my father is indoctrinated into the system, which is really surprising because he kind of lives off grid in the mountains, but he's in it and he's in his 70s. And my sister is a nurse. She's very deeply indoctrinated into the system. And I have a huge family. I mean, I'm a newfie. I've got 26 cousins younger than me on my mom's side, and the majority of them are indoctrinated into the system. So I'm totally aware that if my father drops dead, I can't get on a plane to go back to Canada, that's something I've made peace with in the last year. But I also understand that like everybody plays their part, you know, and this is a spiritual battle more than anything. And obviously his soul has decided that his place in it is to be where he is, you know. I think it's batshit crazy, but I also respect his decision. And to be honest, COVID did me this big favor because no one's trying to indoctrinate me back there anymore. They understand that it's certain death for me to come home.
Yeah. How do you live now? I mean, how have you lived for the last 12, 13 years since you left?
Well, I left before digital nomads existed. Actually, we were talking before about managing your expectations with internet in Mexico. And I think one of the best things that happened to me is that I left Canada with a company. I had music labels as my clients and I was working in viral marketing. And I had a company doing that. And I still have that company. We're a street team across Canada, but it's not my main income anymore since COVID. But initially I thought, well, wait a second. I work with people across Canada. We have like 5 or 6 time zones. Like what different, half these people I'm never going to meet. They're in Vancouver on the other side of the country. What difference does it make if I'm here or in Nicaragua? Who knows? Who cares? So that was sort of my original thought. I mean, I always have traveled my whole life. I moved around a lot as a child. I've always been, my dad lived in one province, my mom in the other, and I flew to go see him twice a year by myself since the age of 4, which sounds really crazy now, but in the 80s, it was like, you know, someone held my hand at every step of the way. Flight attendants took care of people then. They didn't just like dole out chips and hand gel and like tell you, don't do this, don't do that, and yell at you and stuff and terrorize babies. It was like a totally different time, you know?
Yeah, it was.
So I did a lot of flying and I loved it. I loved being on my own. I loved being pampered by the flight attendants and getting all these extra perks and I always got to go meet the pilot and all that stuff, right? So I love that. And I think that's where, and also my dad really liked road trips. My mom moved around a lot. Like, I think I really got that travel bug just from moving around a lot and I got really good at being the new kid. And so I always traveled. It's not like I never stopped. I always did it. But I think I wanted to like, I realized in Canada that I was making a lot of money. I was in my 20s, late 20s. And I realized, is this it? I didn't want to just like make more money. I felt really stressed out and exhausted from being a workaholic, which is the noble addiction. It's very well supported by my culture. My culture is so excited for a woman who gives up her life to go become a doctor, but feels no excitement for a woman who has children in her early 20s. We have a very low birth rate in Canada because mothers and children are just so under celebrated and they're so expensive. You know, I'm from a culture that doesn't give a shit about kids or community, and that's the truth. You know, Canadians hate hearing it. They would say, I love kids. And then I see them around my kid after 2 days and I'm like, I don't. And it's not because people don't, I'm learning how to be that too. Still, I still have this, Canadians really love quiet and space. I also want quiet and space. I also have this. I want space and quiet. Mexicans don't want that. I actually heard something great in India because I always was looking for a quiet space to work because I was hiding out there. none of my clients knew I was in India getting my yoga teacher training. They thought I was in Toronto at my desk suffering like the rest of them. So I had to use selfie sticks, and there was no digital nomads. I had to just figure out how to do it and work with whatever system was available. In India, that meant using a different stick like every day and spending like $20 a day. And it was like it wasn't that expensive because my bills in Canada were so big, but it was like, by today's standard, like some crazy ass sitting on a rooftop so I could get a signal. Like it was that kind of thing. And then like getting really good headphones and waking up at 4 a.m. and pretending like I was at my desk and hoping that no exotic monkey or bird or something would go off, or they would hear anything, or someone would come and get me. Yeah. But I was always looking for alone time, and Indians would say to me all the time, or say to other people, oh, don't worry about her, she likes to be lonely.
Oh, that's interesting. That's their observation of you. Mm-hmm.
That was the observation of someone that wants space and quiet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, she likes being lonely.
She likes being lonely, not alone or quiet. It's lonely. Okay.
In my culture, we don't see being alone like that as being lonely, but in cultures like Mexican culture, Latino culture, Indian culture, a lot of Southeast Asian cultures, they're like, who wants to be by themselves out in the middle of nowhere? What's the good in that? Right. And now that I've been here a long time and I have a Mexican child and I'm more in, I'm an immigrant into the culture, I also feel like that. I sort of have this knee jerk, like my mom will take my daughter for 2 days and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go to Masunte and spend time alone and read like 5 books and lie in a hammock. And it sounds so nice and something I haven't had in so long. I get out there and 3 hours in, I'm like, God, I'm bored. And my mind is just like racing and I'm thinking about all these problems. And I'm like, I better find some friends to get out of
yeah.
prison in my mind,
Mm-hmm. You're still working through that stuff. So why don't you take us on some of your journeys and let's put some years to this. When did you leave Canada to come to, where did you go? Let's hear about the places you've been and maybe hear some stories.
I don't do anything really like willy-nilly. I'm like such a Taurus energy, like really plodding along. So I started somewhere around 30, so that would have been 12, 13 years ago. I was like, it started with a financial motivation. I was like, well, sure, like it costs the same amount of money to live in the winter in Canada as it does in the summer, but I made the majority of my money in the warmer months. So I was like, well, surely rather than living on my savings, surely I can go somewhere cheaper for these winter months and do the same thing. So it started with me thinking I would go away for 4 to 6 months of the year and be kind of a snowbird. What I didn't bank on was that I was going to start to loathe going home. The more freedom I got, the more happy I got, the less I cared about money and career. And it became like dragging my ass back to Canada. So that was kind of like the process of how I ended up leaving completely in 2015. But I started many years before, and I started because I loved Japan. I wanted to move to Japan for a long time in my early 20s. I tried to make Japan work for 3 solid visits. I had friends and stuff there, and then I realized Japan wasn't really like my future, my home. A lot of it had to do with I was unhappy with Canada. It wasn't living up to my expectation of like what I thought. What I remembered is the country. I was seeing the people get fractured. I was seeing a lot of the systems that we were proud of get ruined. We were kind of going down this globalization, Walmart kind of life that I was like, I don't want any of this. And this is not what I remember. And I want to pick apples off the tree in the backyard like I did when I was a kid. I don't want to like buy plasticized things imported from God knows where at a Walmart, that wasn't what I wanted. And I saw Canada going in that direction. So a lot of it had to do with that I didn't feel at home anymore. So I was like searching for my home. And I think that was the motivation. And initially I went to Asia because that's what I knew. I mean, Canadians, we have such a huge amount of Asian immigrants that like, you'll never meet a Canadian that can't cook at least one Asian dish really well.
Interesting. Yeah.
Whether they can make great, like, Chinese dim sum dumplings, or they can make sushi, or like my sister makes a really great curry. She's like the whitest woman you'll ever meet, but she lives in Alberta, which has got a high South Asian population in it. And And yeah, so it was just for that. Sorry, somebody came in here and I booked a private.
No problem, don't worry.
So yeah, so in any case, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So they were talking, you won't meet a Canadian that doesn't know how to make some kind of Asian dish, dim sum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I really thought like, well, Asia is what I want to explore, of course, like growing up with so many friends around me who were Asian and whatnot. And I went off to India and Southeast Asia, and I actually worked out in Bali for a while, and I really enjoyed it. And ultimately, I ended up leaving there because I came back to Canada to get all my stuff, because I was supposed to move to Bali full time. And when I got back to Canada, I realized I didn't want to live in Asia. That
What
it was
the
too
reason? Too far away. Okay.
It was too far away, and I would really be cutting myself off from the Americas. And there was some love still there, and I wanted to be able to visit friends and family and keep some of that. And I also knew that living in Asia, I would always be an outsider. I would never, even if I married someone, had children, whatever, I would never be part of the culture. It's different. It's more separated. Foreigners, there's more expats and less immigrants. And I really wanted to find my home in a new country. And so I came back, and then I thought, well, I'll go check out Central America. I've never been down there. And that sort of started. That's when I realized I started doing more volunteer tourism, doing permaculture, staying in. I didn't want to, like, a lot of tourism is sort of based around drinking. This was before the digital nomad thing existed. So there's a lot of that now, work, travel. And a lot of it was really around drinking. And so I didn't want that. Like, I was like, I've traveled for long enough. I feel like the whole backpacker party thing was over for me. I was in my mid-30s. I had a business, I needed good internet, so I went off and did a lot of permaculture volunteerism, because that was a way to meet people, but not in a bar setting. That was the motivation. That's also why I became a teacher and why I did that type of thing, and more like the hippie stuff. But to be honest, I never really fit in with that crowd either. And yeah, I went off then to, I fell in love with Nicaragua. I lived there. I kind of slowly got rid of my possessions. And then finally in 2015, I came back to Canada for 8 weeks, and that was it. And it was like a wake up call. I was like, look, you're not living half the year out of Canada. Like, you are out. You just need to.
What was it that just made, because we as you say you're not an expat, what would you consider yourself? Are you like a full-time traveler, nomadic type? How would you define yourself?
At that point, I was totally an expat, or I was looking to be an expat.
You were looking to be an expat, okay.
Yeah, I was an expat for a really long time. And
but something clicked in your mind, you said that's enough. As we say in Spanish,
I think it was just like one of these things where, like, I had to admit to myself what was actually going on. Like, I think I was trying to have it all, have the best of both worlds. And what was really happening was I was just kind of holding on to something because of fear, most likely. I probably was holding on to Canada because I thought, well, if I leave my job, what will I do? Where will be my safety net? I won't have the net anymore. I won't have my health care. I won't have all these things. I was still to some extent indoctrinated into that idea, right? And I mean, a lot of decisions that I've made in life have been, or a lot of things that I've had a hard time. I mean, I was ready to let go of Canada way before I did it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to admit it to myself and take the leap. The irony is, of course, as soon as I left, 6 months later, I got pregnant with no possessions in a country where I had no citizenship and no foothold that had just been there only 6 months. Like,
oh, okay. Let's talk about that.
The craziest thing that can happen to anyone. It wasn't that bad at the end. It was, at the end of the day, it was probably necessary that happened. But my motivation for leaving Canada was, I thought, well, I'll just do what I've been doing, but with closer countries. I'll live half the year in Guatemala, and I'll get a little bit of city life and you know, movie theaters and sushi restaurants and things like that. And I'll live the other half of the year off grid in Nicaragua and get my like living in nature and being in a hammock and teaching yoga full time. And that was my idea. And I would become one of the people that teaches English and yoga. And that was, I was going to let it all go. And I gave away or sold all my stuff, and I lived like that. I lived out of a backpack for just over a year. And then when I was pregnant, I started to amass stuff again.
And I met you. I wouldn't say that you knew who I was, but you have a pretty awesome YouTube channel. Okay.
Thank you.
No, you really do. And it's talking to, I really love it because you're showing how you, I mean, you're still doing the YouTube channel, I assume, right? Are you still making videos? You're not doing it.
We did our trip to Guatemala in July as last videos. YouTube sent me a very clear letter saying that if I don't shut up, they're gonna delete me. They gave me a black strike, and they were very clear that they were actively looking for a reason to delete the channel.
Oh my word, I wasn't even aware of this. Okay. All I knew is when I moved to Mexico about 3 years ago, I started following you because I'm another single mom. And I'm like, look at all these places you're going, and you're like off the grid. You were going places that people are terrified to go into, you know, Nicaragua, El Salvador. You were also in El Salvador, correct? And you're crossing borders in Guatemala. You spend a lot of time there. And a lot of places where a lot of international people really aren't aware of what it's like. I mean, they have a reputation of being extremely dangerous countries. So I want to hear your take about what you found there, and how living abroad has changed you. I mean, I'm throwing a lot of questions at you right now, but here's how I see you. I see this brave, gutsy single mom who's raising her daughter, who's now 5. And I remember seeing her when she was 1 or 2, and you were carrying her around in her backpack. I was like, go mama. I mean, it was so empowering for me coming into full-time travel at that point. We're now settled in a place, but at that time, you were just like so gutsy and so courageous. I can't even describe what it was like to even watch your videos. And now I'm really upset at YouTube.
Well, nobody is interested in somebody who's saying things like my body, my choice, unless it's pro-abortion.
Okay.
You know? So, I mean, I was just telling people, like, look into the ingredients, ask your doctor. Your doctor is only an MD. It's a vocational degree, same like a mechanic. They are not gods. Ask questions, do your own research, read the ingredients, say no if you want to. It's your body. Inform yourself, empower yourself. Apparently the WHO is not very happy with that type of rhetoric. So I was told by YouTube that if I didn't say what was written specifically on the WHO website about vaccines, about the mRNA shots, then I would be deleted, and that they were more than happy to delete me and were looking through my old stuff for reasons to delete me, i.e. if I didn't comply. So I went to the WHO site, and the WHO site said over and over that the mRNA vaccines were safe. They have never passed any safety protocol by any governing safety body in the world. So that's a lie, straight up. And when I saw that, I thought, I cannot say this. Not because I'm not capable of saying something for a job, but because somebody gave me some really good advice when I was pregnant. Everybody was telling me how to live, and I wasn't really sure what to do. Guatemala, Canada, whatever, you know. A friend of mine who's got a few kids just said to me, do what you can live with, because at the end of the day, you got to sleep with yourself at night.
Good advice.
If you up at night, don't do it. Because she was like, there's no right or wrong way with kids. You just do what you can live with, and then, you know, keep it moving. And I really have always remembered her words, and I just thought, I can't live with myself telling people they're safe when I know it has never been proven. Nobody knows if they're safe. I mean, we know now they're not safe, but at the time, nothing, you know, and just because it's not safe doesn't mean anything. I mean, cocaine's not safe, and tourists do it all over Mexico. So it's like, just because you know
all
it's
over the
not safe,
world. Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're not going to make that choice, right? But I wasn't going to say it, right? I wasn't going to promote it, and I knew I could, and I know me, I knew I couldn't shut my mouth.
Yeah.
So we just took the opportunity to close the channel down. And to be honest, I was ready to do that anyway. We weren't going to be traveling around a lot. As of 2019, we came back from Thailand, and I had already decided that I didn't want to be zipping around the world anymore for a while. Mainly because I just really didn't want to participate in what tourism had become, which was very like big box McDonald's, destructive, very environmentally destructive. I was seeing the mass destruction of tourism all over the world, and like everything else that's been destroyed by globalization, it just was becoming this like, you know, eating pizzas in places outside where people are catered to their whims, but their whims are, I don't know, the same shitty Taco Bell burrito they know from home, you know. And it was hard it was getting harder and harder to get off the beaten path. It was harder and harder to feel I was doing anything more than throwing plastic in the ocean, you know. It was just hard not to continue traveling and not participate in this thing that I could see was really destroying places all over the world. And so I just made the decision when we came back from Thailand that I didn't want to participate in that anymore, and that I didn't want to promote to people online to go to places that I felt the best thing we could do was not go there anymore to save them. I mean, there are beaches and places all over the world that are being shut down because tourism has destroyed them all over Asia. The year that COVID hit, Mazunte, a little beach town near me, had run out of water for 4 months due to tourism, and they were still building places. And I was like,
oh my goodness,
for you to stop. And there's this thing where people are like, well, governments don't stop us. And I mean, to think that the Mexican government has the kind of money to stop tourism, the money that we have, that we bring in, I mean, it's like David and Goliath with a little needle, and Goliath has like a full artillery. Like, they do shut things down here all the time, and the money opens them up again. And the truth is, we have to take responsibility for the fact that we're contributing. And that's, I think, it's like the managing expectations. It came down to this thing where I was like, I really want to go to Thailand. There's no way to go to Thailand without destroying Thailand. So I have to make a choice. Do I want to go to Thailand and contribute to its destruction? Or do I want to maybe stop going to Thailand and go later maybe, or choose my times better? For a long time, I felt that there should be lotteries in the world for some places like Bali. Like, you enter a lottery, you put your name in, and then you get to go every 5 years.
Oh, interesting.
So whenever you feel like you have to win the lottery, and they call you and say, oh, hey, 2022 is your year to visit Bali. You and 1 million other people have won your chance, you know, and that you put your name in for the places you want to go, and you get to go a certain year so that they can curb the destruction we're doing.
The environmental destruction. Yeah. You've got a lot of thoughts in that head of yours. You've thought about so many things that you're teaching me a lot today.
And I thought at the time, I was like, I would do the lottery. I love Bali so much. And if someone came along and said, you only get to go every 5 years, I'll bet your ass, one, I would go every 5 years.
Yeah.
Two,
sure.
I would put a lot more effort into that trip, into making magical memories, which is actually what I learned traveling with Luna, is that when you travel with kids, it's a better experience. It's less about buying things, filling time, being bored, and more about creating memories with your family. Like, that's more the focus.
I think I saw one of your videos. I mean, I'm going to interrupt you for a second, where you're, I think you mentioned that somebody wanted to give you a gift, and you said, no, I don't want it. I'm living as a minimalist. And was it you that said that?
I don't know, but almost every year I say no gifts for Luna on her birthday.
Exactly. Maybe it was something like that. But you're just not collecting stuff along the way. So an interesting one.
Yeah, we're just not. I mean, it's just more to carry. I got to carry everything. There's a parade going by because of Dia de Guadalupe that's coming. So there's going to be a parade in the background for a little while. I hope that's okay. It's going to get louder.
Listen, I might have the tamale guy or the ice cream man come by or whatever, the gas, you know, state that gas, you know, what that sounds like.
I love the way it is here. I'm a big loud person, so I love it. I love being in a place where people are totally supportive of that.
So you ended up in Puerto Escondido. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the other countries, Central American countries, if I may.
Yeah, ask me about anywhere.
Well, I've seen you cross borders in really kind of sketchy ways, and I'm like, she's. I
haven't even done that much with Luna. I've done way sketchier shit on my own.
Well, I mean, I thought it was awesome. Like you're doing things the untraditional way, and I always just found that so interesting. And I'm really upset that they won't let you keep doing because you were what you were doing because you were really a great mind opener. Because
I am doing it on the fly. I have my own network now. It's not very big. I'm not promoting it really that much, but it's on the Mighty Networks. It's called Travel Mamas. And I'm actually working on a post right now of going to Palenque, Chiapas for that. But we talk more about like immigrating to Mexico. It's more because of COVID, it's become more of a place to help people leave, which is something I started doing long before COVID, but obviously has become more of a focus now, is helping families get out of like what I used to call butch democracies, where children are not, they're just looked at as burdens instead of blessings, where people are, the financial burden is just too heavy on a family and they could have the same or better family experience if they just left the financial burden of, say, England, United States, Australia, Canada, like the main democracies. So I was doing that for a while, and then COVID kind of made that more. Now I help people like figure out residency and how to get over borders. And I tell people a lot about like, oh, I went down to Guatemala, and here's all the places you can go without a passport, you know, and I try to help people figure out like there are ways around these systems. They're just harder to find now.
So would you say that you've become a type of consultant for people to learn how to, are you charging for those kinds of services or giving out free advice?
It's $9.99 a month to be in Travel Mamas, but I mean, it's really just to keep things going. I don't make any money off it at all. I think maybe I make $150 a month, which is probably how much I made on Google ever with YouTube anyway. Like I've never really made a living at it.
Okay. That was my next thought.
The YouTube channel was, I'm horrible at taking photos and making memories on vacation. I just don't care. Any amount of time I can not be on my phone, I'm happier. I love going places where there's no Wi-Fi. I'm like, oh great, I can just throw that away. You know, like
I love living off the grid, in other words, right? Yeah,
really
I love
like
it.
getting away from the stress of it, the feeling of I need to get online and get things done, you know? And I think that's more a me thing than like a phone thing. So the YouTube channel was great because it gave me something to do with a baby. Yeah. And it gave me, like, I kept being like, I'm definitely the type of person, like here in Mexico, we're in Chiapas right now, visiting. And there's a little cafe called Frontera that I used to go to when we lived here. And I just go there every day for coffee. There are literally hundreds of amazing coffee places here in Chiapas, but am I going to check them out? No, I go to Frontera because I know it and I like it. I'm just such a creature of habit. So the YouTube channel really helped me to like go try new things because I had an excuse like, oh, we have to make a certain video or we have to make a certain amount of footage or whatever. So I'm going to go out and find those things to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it kept me kind of moving. Like now without it, I'm like, oh, there's so much sloth here. You know, I'm doing so much less. Luckily, I have friends and stuff that are traveling that kind of keep me moving, you know? And this is why also, you know, we started redefining travel a little bit, that it's more road trips. It's more going, like now we just go to places where people are not participating in COVID, you know? So I just go, like we were just in Palenque and like a man who is almost 80 years old was our tour guide. He did not wear a mask. I mean, he washes his hands like anyone. He doesn't use gel. He just like eats well, sleeps well, and exercises every day.
Takes care
we
of
had to go to the ruins, and he said before we did, he said, listen, did you guys all bring a mask? You're going to have to wear one just to walk in, but on the other side, we can take it off. That man had his on for less than a minute. put it on at the door, and he took it off the second he got inside, you know? And this is a man close to 80. He's supposed to be this vulnerable group we're all worried about, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody in any of these small towns that are like growing their own food, living simply, living small, living outside of globalization.
Yeah.
Them care or are paying attention. And it's not just COVID. It's like they're not paying attention to a lot of things that the rest of the world is saying are important. You know, they're not paying attention to McDonald's either.
No.
They're not doing a lot of things, you know? So, you know, these are the places that have become more interesting now, and they're not as accessible or as easy to get to. It requires going by car. It's a slower burn. It's a slower movement. It's less exciting on video and more exciting in real life and in back and forth interaction, you know? So that's kind of where things have gone. And I'm less inclined to show it to everyone because I think some of these places we're going don't really have much tourism, and that's kind of the beauty. We're trying to just check them out without interfering with them too much, you know?
Well, what does Luna say? Your daughter, who's now 5, what does she say about, I mean, the way she's been brought up is so different from most people in she can't remember. Okay.
Can't remember. Most of it happened before she was 2. Most of the, like, we went to 9 countries before she was 2. So she can't remember any of that. She always asked me to see photos of her and stuff of her old life. We recently went back to Guatemala in July to visit people down there, and that, you know, helped raise her for the first 2 years, and she got to re-meet them, and she really likes connecting. We're in San Cristobal right now, where she was born, and she really likes coming back here because she has a feeling of there's a rooting here for her. Some of the things that have been really great now that she hasn't traveled that much. She just has a sort of normal, bucolic, small town life, which is different than me.
Simple.
Yeah, and what I found is that, I mean, we take these trips as opportunities to reconnect with each other. To be honest, my daughter on this trip, I've really seen that I have been probably a little too loose with like how many things I give her and how much, you know, we live in a town where there aren't a lot of street people. There aren't a lot, like, she doesn't have a lot of awareness of her privilege. She doesn't have a lot of awareness of volunteering. We have done some volunteering and stuff, but we live in a town that, like, everyone's pretty middle class. There's not a lot of like obesely rich people, you know, and there's not a lot of like huge, I mean, there are lots of poor people, but they're poor people that grow their own food. They're not poor people begging in the street. It's not like a city poor person. She doesn't have access to that. So on this trip, I've seen a lot of like, I give in and give her things too much. She's getting too many treats from my mom. She's getting spoiled, basically.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And because she's 5 now, she's not a toddler. So she can't get away with acting like one, which she still does, but she's not, you know, she's still a little girl. So these trips are really important for us because it gives me a chance to really see my daughter. And on this trip, we fought a lot more than we normally do. But it's made me realize, like, when I go home, I have to change some things. I'm not paying attention to some things. I'm getting sloppy in some of my habits. It's always you who has to change when your kid's all messed up, right? So you made them that way. So, you know, it's great. I told her when we get home, we're doing a big chart, and when she does the right thing, she'll get a gold star. And then when she gets a certain amount, we're going to buy a gift at Coppell. Like, she loves Coppell. She thinks that Soriana, Coppell, these places that I've never taken her, they're just like God's gift to toys. She's never seen so many toys, you know?
Yeah.
Because we don't have a lot of that stuff in our town.
Let me interrupt you to explain what Coppell is for a lot of, because a lot of our audience is in North America. So it's like a mini department store chain here in Mexico. It's not as big as maybe Macy's or something like that, but it is the Mexican, one of the Mexican versions of department stores. Yes.
Yeah, it's like Sears. That's what we had in Canada.
Exactly.
Sears, like the cheaper Macy's, right? It's like the cheaper Coppell. But yeah, I mean, I don't really go to those big box places. We do most of our stuff local, and part of that is because I'm not interested in globalization. I left my country because it was destroyed by it.
Yeah.
So part of it's that, but also in COVID, it's like you can't bring kids anywhere. You got to wear a mask. They spray you down with bleach and God knows what else. And it's like the experience is really unfriendly. Nobody helps you anymore. They're just security guards making sure you don't take a sneaky breath, you know, and why would I pay for that? You know, so we really don't go to them anymore. Like if anything, COVID helped me just quit. I haven't been in a Chedraui in a year and a half. And I'm like, honestly, I don't miss it. I've just found other ways to buy that stuff locally. So anyway, my daughter thinks that's great because we're in a city and she saw those things now. So I said, well, great, you get 10 stars, you get a toy from Copel. But these trips are opportunities for me to like check in with her now.
Yeah.
She's 5. What does she need now that she didn't need last year? We were here in July, and November to July, when you got a small child, that's a long haul. She's a different person now.
Mm-hmm.
I realized on this trip that I can't get away with putting her in daycare, that she really wants to go to a school environment now. And so we did that. She's like in a more institutionalized place, and you know, that's great. I've realized on this trip, we've gotten to talk a lot about why we donate a lot of things anytime she grows out of it, but she doesn't really know why or what the process is or where they go, because most of it goes out of our town to more remote communities. Here in San Cristobal, there's a lot more. I mean, obviously the number one thing the pandemic did was create more poverty. So there's more of it here. Mm-hmm. And it's an opportunity for her to see other children just like her that don't have a mom who can just buy her a jacket at Copel because it's cold out, right? And it's been great because these trips, they're an opportunity to look at your surrounding and learn a little bit more about each other. It's not always about, I mean, like how much, I mean, we're not looking at zoo animals. Like how much can we really learn about Indigenous communities? You know, we can only get so far. She can only understand that so much. It can't be too far out of her comfort zone, right? So it's a matter of coming, you know, trying to come to some middle ground with other cultures and at the same time learn about each other. Because in a way, we're just here together. We don't have our community around us, right? So we're isolated together as well. That's part of travel.
But your mom did end up moving down there with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, my mother and I haven't lived together since I was 18. So, you know, like she's here and she has a really strong relationship with my daughter.
Good.
And of course she's my mother, so we speak and stuff, but we don't, like, I don't spend any holiday, we don't spend holidays together or anything like that. We have sort of a classic separated British style family.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but we are going on the way home. My mom's in Huatulco right now, and we're going there. She's going to spend some time with Luna. I'm going to stay there overnight so she can but I'll go out with my friends and she'll have time with Luna. That would be us spending time together.
Oh boy. Very Anglo-Saxon upbringing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. But at least she has her grandma in her life.
Yeah. I mean, they have a wonderful
huge, even if it's just 10 minutes at a time, but okay. Let's call it quality instead of quantity.
Yeah, they have a really fun relationship and I'm very supportive of it. And I work really hard to provide them with lots of time to get to know each other. And my mom also works hard to make that happen too. And
good.
So we both were on board with making it happen for her and Luna to have a great relationship. And we come together on things like what's going on for Christmas? What are we actually getting? Where are the limits? How is this going down? Is Santa going to get the cheapest gift under the tree again? I don't let him steal my thunder.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I don't want to extend too far because both of you and I have commitments today, but what would you like to include that maybe we haven't talked about or included in this interview?
I think the main thing that people need to do when they travel is don't assume that what you know is the right thing. Just know that you know a story of how the world works, and that's it. That's all you know. You don't know the right or wrong way. You just know the way that you were told. And I think in the case, especially of people from the United States is probably the only country I'm scared of because it's so dangerous. And Americans are taught their entire lives that everywhere else is dangerous in order to normalize how dangerous their country is.
Oh, amen. I'm so glad you brought up this point. Oh,
That's not the truth.
Great
That's
point.
just a story. And in Canada, we have stories too. We have the story of the superiority, the story of the free healthcare. Well, it's not free. And also you get what you pay for sometimes. Like, how come dental is only $30 every single country I've ever been to in the world, and it's $250 in Canada? So we don't have the best, we just have a story. And so I think a lot of these places, for instance, you're saying were really dangerous. I mean, Nicaragua's not dangerous. You can hitchhike in Nicaragua as a woman by yourself. I can't say that for a lot of other countries.
No.
You can't do that in the United States.
No, absolutely not.
So, you know, a lot of these, they don't shoot up high schools anywhere else in the world except the United States. I mean, I even was in Kingston, Jamaica, and when I asked about, because it's kind of rough, when I asked about like, how rough is it? Like, where are the lines on that? You know, like, what's the real story? A cab driver said to me, well, we don't shoot up schools here. And I thought, well, touche, you know, good answer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
you just have to be willing to like get in touch with your gut instinct. I think that when you travel, just be open to meeting people and new experiences, and trust your gut. If your gut says this is not safe, don't do it. To tell you the truth, like nothing feels less safe to me than being in a gated community somewhere where it's quiet. Like, that's when I always feel unsafe, because I feel targeted and I feel like no one can hear me scream. I don't feel unsafe in some, you know, apartment building with like a market around and people around, you know. I feel fine in those places. And also, if you travel with kids, I think a lot of people don't realize, they think they're more vulnerable, but you're actually more protected. Because who robs someone with a kid when you could get a backpacker by themselves? Who rapes a
good point.
Kid? You know, when do you hear about a woman with a kid getting raped? I mean, that's so rare, you know?
Never heard of it. Never.
No, it's like kids protect you, and everybody's got them. So they're also this great conversation piece. Everybody will talk to you if you travel with your child, because they want to know your story, because they have kids and you have something in common right away.
And you're in such a kid-friendly place, you know. Mexico, and I can only assume, I haven't been to other countries in Central America, they are just such a family-friendly and kid-friendly country that you could be in, you know. So I've seen that in your videos where people have just taken you guys in and like, this is, I'm gonna play with Luna, and you know,
I've had so many people,
so beautiful to see.
I've had so many people tell me, well, I'm just going to travel with you guys. Everyone's so much nicer when you have a kid. Like, I was in Vietnam and a woman was traveling for work there, and she was staying in the same place we were staying, in this kind of community family owned. It was like somewhere between boutique hotel and hostel kind of thing. And this one was traveling on her own from the United States for work. And we went out for a couple of lunches, and she said, you know, nobody has smiled at me in this town. We were in Hoi An. And I said, are you kidding? And she said, well, obviously you don't know, because people are laughing and smiling and playing with your baby everywhere we go. I mean, people were giving me candies from their purse, grandmas and stuff. And like, you know, I was like, oh, well, this is just what it's like for me. Everybody's smiling and happy. And she was like, I'm going everywhere with you with a mom and a baby from now on. So, you know, for the most part, you know, a kid opens doors, a lot of doors. And I think people have been lied to about what it's like to travel with kids so that they can sell package deals, you know?
Yep.
But be willing to let go of your story. Be willing to be open to a new story, because maybe it is your story, but like, you can make your own. The one that you were told is not necessarily right. It's just the one you were told. You can learn a new one. You can have a different story at any time in your life. So
question the narrative is what you're saying.
Yeah, be open to a different perspective.
Love it. And that's really been what you are about. I mean, watching you, I'm like, you just go with the flow. You're just like, you don't have any preconceived notions, or if you once did, it seems like those have been blasted apart.
Yeah, I think because I didn't feel at home in Canada. It didn't feel like the right story for me. Not that it's bad, it just didn't feel right to me. And I think because I've always been somebody looking for my home, which I found in Mexico, but looking for my home, I was really open because I didn't like the story I was given. I didn't like the home I had. So it made it easier for me to be open because I was still invested and indoctrinated, because I didn't know any different out of ignorance.
Right.
But I wasn't like, I believed there was another way because I didn't like the way I had, right? I didn't like the job I had. I wanted something else. So I think that made me more open to learning different perspectives. But it's become the most fun thing, is learning how other people see it and do it, and questioning, oh, is everybody doing this? Is it really everybody? And now I'm like, is everybody actually wearing masks? Are they? Is everyone participating? Turns out a lot of places are not participating.
So I have this one last question, and then I'm going to ask you if you want to be contacted, which I see you probably do want to be. The question is, what were you missing there that you have now found? What was the missing element, the missing puzzle piece?
In Canada?
Yeah. That you have now found in Mexico. You said, I didn't like how I felt, or I don't know your exact words, but it didn't feel maybe authentic or the right fit for you. It didn't
feel like my home. Mexico has taught me so many things. Mexicans taught me how to eat fruit. Before I was just eating fruit. Now I'm eating fruit with chili and lime and salt, and it's taken fruit to a whole new level. It's like Mexicans taught me a lot of basic shit that I thought I had right that I had wrong.
Okay.
So Mexico has taught me a lot of things, but I think the main thing that Mexico has taught me, and I'm still learning it all the time because I do selfish gringo shit all the time. Don't think that I'm some saint. I mess this up more often than I would like to this many years in, but is to be more humble and to realize that, like, I come from an incredible amount of privilege, and that doesn't make me bad or anything like that, but that it makes me unable to see things a certain way, or unable to understand some things, and that I can be open to learn. And I think the number one thing that Mexico has taught me is that quiet and space is not as fucking valuable as I thought it was. That children are blessings. And they enhance a room. They don't take away from it with their laughter, with their annoying little traits. Those are all wonderful. But Mexicans really look at my kid like she's great, even when she's crying. She doesn't have to be any kind of way. They've really taught me a lot about, like, what is community, how to be a member of community, how to be more humble. This is like my biggest learning curve, is like how to be, like, get in a fight with your neighbor, repair it and move forward and still be in the community, not just like leave the WhatsApp group and never talk to your neighbor again. Like, I only know how to, like, delete, block, move on. I don't know how to, like, eat humble pie, go back, apologize even when it's not my fault, be a member of a community, to put this first, to take time for people, not just buy gifts. Like, these are the things I've really learned in Mexico, is that time counts. Time is the currency. Time is the gift.
Yeah.
Like, we're here and I'm trying to think of Christmas presents for the few people I want to get things for. And I realized, well, I should get them something that we can make for dinner together. It's like, I'm trying to think more this way. I don't naturally go that way. Naturally, I just want to get them something cool, like a member bracelet. But I'm going, no, you know what they'd probably want more is if I bought a La Poche and, like, made an opportunity for us to sit down and drink it and spend a night together. You know what I mean?
Quality time together.
Yeah, like, just re-envisioning what it is, like, really just learning what it is to be a functioning member of a community rather than an island unto myself, which is what I was taught in my culture. It's how to be independent on your own without other people, without other things. And, like, now I'm really learning what it is to be in a group and in a community and to be part of that.
Community, community is really what Mexico is all about. I don't know about other countries, but that is the main reason why we're here where we're at, is because for the first time in our lives, my boys and I are living in a community where people actually make time for us, actually ask us how we're doing, they take care of us, and vice versa. And they don't have to like put us on the calendar, on their agenda, that someday we might get together. Well, someday somebody could die in between here and there, you know. They make time for you now, and it's all about that community factor, just spending a lot of time together, and it's really life-changing for people like us.
It is. It's, I think the longer I'm out of Canada, the more I realize I don't know anything.
Yeah, I echo that same sentiment. I echo that same sentiment. Well, I think we're going to have a few more like a to be continued catch-up kind of video in the future.
Well, hopefully we'll come up there and we can go out and have a drink or a lunch or something.
And you've got a place to stay in our house. We've got a guest room for you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome to, as long as you come after May when we're back in our home, you're welcome to come and visit us anytime too.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Those are the two places that I'd like to see. San Cristobal de las Casas. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Or that's in Chiapas. And then your other home is in Puerto Escondido, Oaxaca, if I'm not incorrect in that saying. So let me just ask you one more question. Would you like to be contacted? And if so, how can people contact you?
People can contact me. I have a Telegram group where I mostly just post things about COVID. It's all like forms you can fill out so that your boss can't fire you for whatever medical decisions you're making, kind of thing. I do a lot of that, and I think it's t.me/travel mama. And then I have the Travel Mamas Mighty Network group, which is Travel Mamas with an s.mn.co for Mighty Networks. And I post videos there on everything from the trip we took to Guatemala, like border crossing stuff. I talk to people about best way to drive down from Mexico. It's very focused on immigrating to Mexico and traveling within Mexico.
Yeah, you're an expert.
Yeah, it's a community. It's $99 a month, but the first month's free, so you can come try it out. There's so many videos there on many different topics. And it's a community where you can meet other people. It's not really huge, but it's pretty effective. In fact, a lot of people that have joined the community have moved down here, and we've later become friends, or I've run into them somewhere or whatnot, or people have found jobs with each other there, and it's a support network as well. So I still have those. And, you know, I have an Instagram. My relationship with Instagram is very on and off. We have like a torrid high school toxic relationship. So I'm on and off there. Yeah, well, they've blocked me so many times that like it's very on and off. But it's Travel Mama Anna Vaughn, and in there you can see a link tree that's got everything else. And same with YouTube. I believe all the info for everything else is on the YouTube. They just become sort of tunes and advertising spaces.
You're not on Facebook?
No, I deleted Facebook.
Oh,
felt great.
Okay.
Felt great. Not on Facebook anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Facebook was the main problem with the censoring, so I had to get rid of them.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't miss it at all. I don't have any of these apps on my phone anymore or anything, but I'm reachable. Like in all these places, like the Travel Mamas Network, you can just write to me.
Okay.
You know, like I'm very reachable in these other less robust spaces, less public spaces.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can always Google my name, Anna Von Francis, and find all the ways to reach me. They're all on there.
I loved your travel videos on YouTube. I'm just so sad. I really didn't know that before we were coming into this interview. So
you never know. We might post more again. I mean, I'm posting them now in other spaces. They're still there in Travel Mamas. There's new ones going up.
So you can't go on YouTube and find your old videos or anything?
The old ones are all there up until July.
Good.
Guatemala, they're all there. I basically made the choice of rather than risk being deleted, I would just stop so that Luna could have all those memories.
Yeah, they're great travel videos. Great resource that you are, by the way. Hold that thought for just a second. For those of you listening, we would love to have your feedback on this interview. We'd love to get your comments. We're building a community here, so we want to make sure that we get your feedback. We have a lot of really interesting perspectives and interviews that are both in English and Spanish. And above all, don't forget to subscribe so you get the new videos that are coming out. And please don't shut me down, Facebook, or excuse me, Facebook and or YouTube.
I don't think they will.
Because I think we've got some really cool people that are coming on. Anna, thanks so much for coming on. It's been such an interesting interview. And I think
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. You've been one of my heroes, Mom, one of my mama heroes. I'm telling you the truth. Over the years. Yes, of course, because I don't know of anybody who does the things that you do, that you've done. You know, you're a pretty brave.
Anybody can do the things I've done. Honestly, anybody can do it. I made the channel so that people can see that anybody can do it, and just follow your dreams, do whatever you want. You don't have to stay at home just because people tell you to.
Amen to that. Well, It's been a pleasure having you, and I'm sure we're going to bring you back on. So we'll be very much in touch after this. Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Okay. Bye-bye.